What's up, YouTubers? Welcome back. You may be working on your rear parking brake for your pad slap or your brake maintenance. A lot of vehicles today have electronic parking brake, and that's a button usually on the console or something like that. There's no hand or a foot pedal thing for newer vehicles in most cases. But what I've seen on TikTok recently was people thinking that they're master technicians using their cordless battery and applying voltage to the caliper motor so they can retract the piston. Sometimes what you see on TikTok and even here on YouTube is not 100% true. You definitely want to get some valid advice from guys like Ford Mobitek, Ford Boss Me. You know, there's a lot of top level dudes out there that know their thing. And what I've noticed is they're applying voltage to the caliper to get the caliper to retract, and they're retracting the worm gear, not necessarily is turning back the caliper piston. But what they're failing to do is lubricate the boot that goes around the piston. And what happens is sometimes when you retract the worm gear inside there, either with the scan tool or without the scan tool, and sometimes it's a gamble or sometimes it's a risk, you really need to lubricate the piston to seal contact so that when if the worm gear starts to spin, it starts rotating the piston with it, that it's not binding and twisting up and tearing the boot, and then it'll actually wedge back. So then it's in its receiving mode to put new friction material in there. It's not necessarily going to crank out a huge distance to take up the minimal gap between the rotor and pads with new friction material, if you understand what I'm saying. So that boot, as it's twisting back, goes in that position, and it slips back into that bore, and the boot is twisted. It's going to bind on that piston. Also, it could be causing tears that is going to introduce moisture, water, sand, mud, whatever your application is, and ruin your super expensive caliper. So if you're looking at these videos and they're retracting them without lubricating the caliper piston boot, dude, you're giving you bad advice. Just because you saw it doesn't mean that it's correct. So pull your wheels off first. Lubricate the piston, and it's simple. Most of them are accessible. You can just spray a little penetrator in there, let it soak in for a second, and as it turns and it breaks, it will make a little bit of a gap and do that. Do I advise you to take your caliper off without putting your vehicle in maintenance mode? Absolutely not. You will lose fingers. You could hurt yourself. It's very dangerous. So keep that in mind as well too. That is working on a braking system is dangerous for you and the driver if it's not done right, and costly. So pull your wheel off, lubricate with some type of penetrator. Make sure you're hitting that caliper piston. In the older hydraulic systems without electronic parking brake motors, no big deal. If you pull the caliper off, the caliper piston necessarily is not going to pop out and fall apart unless there's an underlying problem. You can take a little seal pick and some penetrator, get it around the caliper piston, and spin it back or push it back without causing any problems. So lubrication of the caliper piston boot surface, mating surfaces, is super important, and I challenge anyone to say I'm wrong. Thanks for watching.